ministry. It was the Ministry of External Affairs at the time, not Foreign Affairs. Why are we setting up an embassy in Ethiopia? There has to be a reason.
Yeah.
You just go and set up an embassy, whatever place. What you setting it up for? What is the embassy to do?
Yeah.
It is taxpayers' money, eh? Both the permanent secretary and the minister at the time, both of them dead now, unfortunately, said, we don't know. I said, what? But it's for you to give me instructions as to what I should do, because you're sending me, you're giving me out some money, and you're telling me, fly from Trinidad to Ethiopia, which is a hell of a long way, and set up an embassy.
Yeah.
I am asking you, fine, okay, I will go and look around and see if I can find a suitable building and this kind of thing, because I had to look for somewhere for myself to live too and for the ambassador to live, etc. But in terms of foreign policy, what are we setting up there for? Now, I thought, my own view was, we're setting up there because Addis Ababa at the time, well, it still is actually, the headquarters
of the OAU.
Of the OAU, as it then was, it's now the African Union, and of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa.
For Africa, yeah.
So I thought, well, you have in one place the two major continental organizations, one political, one economic.
Yeah.
And in fact, a number of countries were setting up in Addis Ababa for that reason. Because they said, we're not going to set up embassies all over Africa. We can't afford it. But if Addis Ababa is a good listening post, then we will set up there. So I thought that is why we were setting up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Still, I wanted to get, that is my view. But I'm not running my own foreign policy. So I want to get word from the bosses.
Yeah, the mandate.
From the minister and from the permanent secretary.
Yeah.
But the minister and the permanent secretary tell me they know. And the minister said, go and ask Eric Williams. Because he and Williams were speaking to each other at the time.
Yeah.
Although they're sitting in the same cabinet.
Right.
So I made an appointment. I went to see Williams. I saw him the day before I left Port of Spain.
Yeah.
Left Trinidad and Tobago.
And
I said, well, Prime Minister, I came to ask, well, why we set it up in Ethiopia? Well, I ain't get a straight answer yet. But at the end of the conversation, he said something which I should have understood. And I didn't understand. And it only struck me afterwards, a long time afterwards. He said, make sure you get Selassie here next year. So I said, how I go make Selassie? How I go get Selassie here next year, boy? So, just so. So, anyway, I went off to Ethiopia. And he also told the ambassador who was coming after me, after I had set up something, told him the same thing, to get Selassie here.
What was that minister's name?
The ambassador's name?
Yes.
Oh, whose name? The minister or the ambassador?
The ambassador to Ethiopia.
George Daniel.
George Daniel?
Yeah. He's been there a long, long time now.
Okay.
So he used to work at the United Nations in New York, and he was a public servant in the UN. And he was chosen because he had served some time in East Africa, in Somalia, as a matter of fact, and Williams felt, well, Somalia is next door to Ethiopia, so, so he tapped him as ambassador. So Daniel resigned from the UN and joined the Trinidad and Tobago Foreign Service.
Yeah.
So I went out, and luckily I knew one or two Ethiopians before. One of them was a good friend of mine,
Right.
and who helped me considerably. He was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Addis Ababa, and he helped me considerably, and we also got contact with him. And luckily also, Selassie, one of his granddaughters, ran a school for infants, sort of pre-primary school.
Right.
And my own daughter was enrolled when my then wife and I came.
So you went to Ethiopia with your family? You brought a family?
Yes, the family came afterwards. Yes, absolutely.
A big move, man.
So my then wife, because we no longer married to each other, and my daughter, our daughter came, and I enrolled the child at the same school. So because of this, the granddaughter and my wife and I became quite close to each other.
Right.
Which helped considerably. Okay?
Yeah.
And, of course, we were pushing this thing of Selassie visiting Trinidad and Tobago. Now, obviously, people in the bureaucracy and in the cabinet and so on in Addis Ababa were saying, who are you going to Trinidad and Tobago for with that?
Yeah.
Two half-baked islands out in the Caribbean, what, they have no importance to us.
Right.
What are you going there for? Now, he knew about Rastafarians,
Yeah.
and he had been making the point that asking Rastafarians to use his words, desist from their belief that he was God.
Right.
He said, I am not God. Stop calling me God. There's only one God, and that's me. But that didn't stop fellas calling him God. But anyway. So finally, Selassie decided he was going to Trinidad and Tobago.
But what do you think his motivations were being to come then? To kind of inspire the national...
I think the motivation was... I know the motivation was that he was grateful for the support that Trinidad and Tobago, people from Trinidad and Tobago, because we weren't independent yet, of course, we were still a colony.
Right.
When the Italians invaded in 1936.
So the support for the Second World War, he was...
the Italian War, when the Italians invaded.
Well, that was a precursor to the Second World War, the Italo-Ethiopian War.
Right. But leave aside the Second World War. I'm talking about the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, because the Italians were not concerned with the Second World War. They were looking to expand their colonial empire.
Yes.
Because they said the British have, and the French have, and the Portuguese have, so who is we?
Right.
We should have too. So they invaded East Africa. They took over part of Somalia.
Eritrea.
Eritrea. And they moved into Ethiopia, or Abyssinia, as it then was, in 1936. And they were there for 5 years. Until 41, when they were thrown out. But
May 5th.
Yes, right. So, are you familiar with the history?
Well, yeah, to be.
Yeah, so what Selassie was extremely grateful for the support that these little places in the Caribbean, including Jamaica as well, of course, because that's where the Rastafarianism really started. That they had given not only out in the Caribbean, but their people speaking on their behalf, like C.L.R. James, who was then in England, had given to Abyssinia
in
its struggle against the Italian imperialists. So he was, in other words, showing his gratitude.
Yeah.
Now, it was very interesting. He came out here, in '66. When Barbados heard he's coming out, Barbados said, "But hey, so you mean to say he gonna come down to Trinidad and fly over Barbados?"
Right.
So they petitioned for him to make a pit stop in Barbados,
right,
which he did for a few hours on his way to Jamaica.
So the trip was initialized to come to Trinidad and
Trinidad, not to Barbados.
And what about Jamaica?
Yes, they added Jamaica. When Jamaica heard that Jamaica did not have an embassy in Addis Ababa at the time.
Right.
In 1966, when I'm talking about, they set one up afterwards, but not at the time. There was no one. But naturally, word spread. So when Jamaica heard that Selassie was coming to Trinidad, they said, well, he had to come to Jamaica too.
Definitely.
And Selassie said, well, yes, okay, fine. I mean, because that's where Rastafarians come from. So, yes, I will go to Jamaica as well.
Right.
And make a state visit to Jamaica.
Yeah.
So he was going to go to Trinidad and Tobago and to Jamaica.
Yeah.
When Barbados heard this, they said, well, he can't just come down to Trinidad, come all the way south, then fly over Barbados and go up to Jamaica. Let him stop off here too.
Well, I don't know if you could correct me, but I was told that Barbados did not have the independence as yet, so that's why it couldn't be a state visit to Barbados.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't have I think they were later that year.
Right. So it could not be a state visit to Barbados.
It wasn't a state visit. No, it wasn't a state visit, but a visit. But it was a very short thing. It was just a few hours.
And then also the visit to Haiti, that was also added on.
I don't know about that. I can't tell you about that one.
Yes, because His Majesty left Jamaica and he went to Haiti and he came Caribbean.
Yes, I can't tell you about that.
Over by Papa Doc Day.
Over by Papa Doc, yes. So, that is that fella. Oh, God. He and his son. Anyway, so that was it. Now, the other side of the coin is, why did Trinidad and Tobago want Selassie to visit? Because remember I told you, William said to me, make sure you get Selassie here next year. And it didn't strike me until a long time afterwards what that meant. The following year, 66, which is the year that Selassie came, was an election year in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
And there were a lot of black people in Trinidad and Tobago who still revered Selassie.
Right.
From the 1930s, when after the Italians invaded, I remember a photograph of the Empress Menen, his wife.
Yeah.
On my mother's living room wall.
Okay.
And a lot of black people looked to Selassie. They even gave their children Ethiopian names. Some people were called Gabre, for instance.
Gabre, yeah.
Yes.
So do you think it was a way to supplant the royal House of England and replace the kind of
Williams wasn't.
Ethiopia?
No. Williams wasn't looking to supplant that, because at the same time, in that same year, 1966, he also had a visit from the Queen.
From the Queen, and I think the same procedures.
That's right. So what Williams was very cleverly doing was hyping up people, saying, look, I have good relations with the Queen, I have good relations with the other side with Selassie.
With the Emperor, right.
With the Emperor, so both sides, all you could vote for me, which is what happened.
So So you think it was a cunning political move? You think it was a cunning political move?
Oh, yes, it was a very cunning political move.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you want about Williams,
Mm-hmm.
That fella had brains to spare.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of people didn't like him and so on, but those who didn't like him respected him.
Yes. Now, I've also read that Dr. Eric Williams was a lecturer in Haile Selassie University in Addis Ababa.
No, that is not true. That is not true. No.
I read that in a scholarly article that he visited and gave a lecture in the Haile Selassie University.
He may have. I don't know if he ever visited Ethiopia, but if he may have given a lecture. Yeah, sorry, he did visit.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Africa in 1964.
64?
64.
Yeah.
Again, I was involved in that because he sent me.
Mm-hmm.
I was then a junior official in our embassy in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We've been independent only 2 years then.
Right.
Plus my then permanent secretary to Africa ahead of him to prepare the visit.
Right.
And he started in the visit started in Senegal, in West Africa.
Senegal.
Went across Africa
to
the east, to Tanzania and Addis Ababa, and then to the north, and then back.
Up to Egypt?
Egypt, yes, right, and Algeria.
Okay.
So, yes, he gave a lecture at Haile Selassie thing. I thought you meant that he was a sort of normal lecturer there. Because
No.
Yeah. Yes, he certainly gave a lecture there. And, of course, Selassie was impressed by this because Williams, as I say, remember, was an extremely bright man.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want about him,
Mm-hmm.
And he could speak as an academic, spoke, which he was before, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And Selassie and others were impressed by this. So, yes, that is so. Now, I wonder where you could find that lecture. I don't know if it is. I will have to check that. Yeah. We'll have to check that. But he lectured in the different places that he went to. He went to Senegal because it was Senghor at the time who fancied himself an intellectual as well.
Yeah.
So he gave things on negritude and all this kind of thing, and across the continent to Tanzania and so on and so on. So that Williams had his reasons for having Selassie. And I think also, in addition to the political point that I just made and the 1966 election in Trinidad, I think that Williams genuinely respected Selassie.
Yes.
Quite apart from his P&M politics, if you like. I think he genuinely respected Selassie. So there we are.
All right. So one more question I'd like to ask you. Well, the closing of the embassy in Ethiopia is just due to lack of funding, also, or what? It was some kind of bad diplomacy or something.
I think that we only opened the embassy in Ethiopia. I'm sorry to say this cynically, but I think we only opened that embassy because Williams wanted Selassie to come here.
No, but I mean, during your period from 73 to
yeah, I know. Yes, I 65 as a matter of fact was when we opened it, and I think he allowed it to carry on for a little while. He put Tichet there, Isabel Tichet, the late Isabel Tichet as ambassador. This is after this fellow Daniel that I mentioned. Then I came afterwards, And then when I left, he decided enough, and he closed the embassy.
Right. So.
The Ethiopians were very upset. They even sent someone from Addis Ababa to Trinidad to ask us to keep the embassy open. And he said, no, we're closing it. And we closed it. I think it was a mistake because Selassie or not, we still have the Economic Commission for Africa and the African Union. And this is an excellent listening post for Africa because you can't set up missions all over the place. We don't have the money for that.
All right, Mr. Dumas. So thanks, right? So I'll be in contact.
Okay, all right.
All right, cool.
Okay, good.